Right.
And I will say this also because over the past weekend, like just thinking a lot about elections and all, and you know the same question, like, oh, who would I vote for if I was in the US?
Yeah.
And I realized, right, because I mean now with our kid, and then over the past weekend, my mom also fell sick.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of stuff happening, right?
Yeah.
And like at 2 a.m., 3 a.m. when like just dealing with stuff, I find myself, you know, when I ask myself that question, I'm more Trump.
Is it?
Yeah.
You hate women, is it?
Fuck you.
You could have scolded by your wife or your mother, then you're like, fuck.
No, because...
Now, if you want to sound like the smartest person in the room at your next dinner party, check out Tell You First, our new podcast series. In each episode, Harish and I dive into fascinating topics you never knew you needed to know, all with a strong infusion of comedy and that uniquely Singaporean perspective. And the catch? One of us is in the know about the topic, and the other, a complete noob, making for some seriously entertaining conversations. We talk about things like the coral crisis of 1967 when there was mass panic in Singapore over shrunken genitalia. We also go into the drama behind building the world's first night zoo, the Night Safari. And we even delve into the history of Singaporean traditions like the wedding gate crash. So head on over now to the Me Listen app, Spotify or Apple Podcasts and search for Tell You First. And now, on to the podcast.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of Yala, your thrice weekly podcast where we cover the hottest news with a touch of what, Terence?
Good old humor.
Good old humor, man. Welcome back, man.
Yes, finally home.
Finally home. How does it feel, man?
Good. Been just following stuff going on around the world in Singapore. I mean, while I was away, there was like a guy with a flamethrower in Pasir Ris, right?
Yeah.
And then there was a stabbing in a church.
Yeah.
Got a new US president.
Yeah.
And Pritam Singh's trial was going on.
Pritam stood for testimony.
Yeah. So much shit was going on while I was away, man.
Yeah, so, but why were you looking at what was all happening as opposed to just enjoying a holiday?
No, I was enjoying it. But that's what I'm saying. You could barely pry your eyes away from like stuff going on around the world.
I see.
I was in Okinawa.
Yeah.
Unironically, in a place where there's a lot of US influence, right? Where the US influence, you can really see it in this little Japanese island. I mean, not little, but it's a smaller Japanese prefecture, right? So yeah, all that going on around the world, and there I was in the middle of this place that has seen a lot of outsized American influence in society.
I see. But like, how was the trip?
Yeah, it was good. It's good. Had a lot of cultural experiences. I mean, Okinawa, for those who haven't been before, it's like an island outside of Japan, south of Japan. And a lot of Chinese influence, obviously US influence also. So the range of food there is very interesting, very exciting. I had a lot of cultural experiences. When I travel, I like to go to off the beaten track kind of places a little bit. So like when I went to Korea in Jeju, I just went to a random beach. I saw the Hanyo divers, the UNESCO World Culture.
The pool divers.
Hanyo, like female divers.
Yeah.
Who dive for like sea conch and all that.
Okay. I see.
Just by holding a breath. UNESCO World Heritage Cultural thing, right?
Yeah.
I got to see that when I went off the beaten track. In France, when I've traveled there, I go off the beaten track. I've seen I've been invited to vineyards, private vineyards, to taste wine with like the producers and all. So this one I also did the same. I went to off the beaten track a little bit, drove to a really remote beach off the north of Okinawa, the main island. And now I was treated to a cultural experience because right next to me there was a Japan AV shoot going on. A Japan AV photo shoot going on.
I was thinking there better be a punchline to this, man, because I was just holding whatever I wanted to say because I was like, okay, give Terence space for the punchline. What the
Japan AV like beach photo
family
shoot.
Friendly, very perfect for a family friendly trip.
Okay, maybe to be very specific, I've been told it's not AV, it might be gravure or something like that.
Which is what?
Which is like Japanese models posing provocatively in bikini, that kind of thing. And then they sell them in magazines. They're called gravure magazines or something.
Okay.
So, but the thing is, I always thought those gravure things had no nudity. But this one had nudity. there was nudity.
On the beach.
On the beach, the very remote beach. Like it was really just my family and a Japan AV shoot going on.
So what did your wife have to say?
No, so I was there with my kid running around, playing in the water. Then my wife goes to explore another portion of the beach.
Yeah.
Then she comes back saying, "Oh my God, there's a Japan AV shoot going on there." Then I'm like, "I gotta see this." It's a cultural event, It's not something that you see every day, or you hear about it, or for me, like I've heard about Japan AV, right? I never seen Japan AV. Like you are a connoisseur of Japan AV.
Hey, please. No, I am not.
I wanted to see for myself how they did it, and it was just like 2 vans and a bunch of dudes, photographer, couple of girls. I didn't see them in states of undress but in bikinis but my wife saw them in states of undress
Is it?
Yeah.
So then what happened after that? Did you all just hang around or you all peaced out?
It started.
Did your son ask you like, "Daddy, what's going on there?"
No, I didn't bring him. Obviously, that was I couldn't bring him to that section of the beach. But it started to pour, and everyone put on bathrobes and just went back to their vehicles.
I see.
So, very, very cultural experience that I had in Okinawa.
I was going to stop you there and say, whenever people have to overemphasize that they are a man of culture, right? I was like, who the hell talks like that?
Exactly. But it tells you, moral story, go off the beaten track, you'll see things that you were not meant to see.
I thought Okinawa was supposed to be blue zone where you're supposed to see how people live healthily.
Hey, what's wrong with celebrating the human body? That's part of living healthily.
Is it? Okay. Yeah, that's true, Terrence.
I knew you'd get a kick out of it. That's why I was just savoring it. And
I mean, it's a funny story. Okay?
It is.
It's a funny story.
I mean, all the times I've been to Japan, I don't think I've ever stumbled upon a
AV shoot.
AV photo shoot.
But was like the water in Okinawa, you see all the pictures and all, it looks insanely clear. Is it like that clear?
It's like that. Exactly.
It's like that.
Yeah. It's what we don't have in Singapore.
Because the island is also quite long, right?
It's a long island, considered tropical, but because it fronts the Pacific Ocean and everything, the water can be cold also. It's quite cold. Winds are very strong. The waves are huge. So different from Singapore.
But the waves are huge, but it's still clear.
Yeah, still clear. Yeah, because the sea dome levels are not like that in Singapore.
The sea dome.
Yeah. You forget already. Clarence Sim, he came and he talked about the sea dome levels in Singapore water. That's why, for those of you who don't know, Clarence Sim is a water expert. Who knows about sea dome levels, which causes visibility in Singapore waters to drop.
Oh, I see. Wow, not bad. I thought it was also because the waves will churn up the ground and all.
But it's less sand and more like corals and rocks on the bottom. Yeah.
Oh, shit.
So very family friendly destinations aside from the occasional Japan.
The remote beaches. Remote beaches.
Avoid the remote beaches if you have children.
But you feel refreshed.
Of course, yeah. It's a blue zone, right?
Yeah.
It's one of those places where people go and everyone there is old and lives long lives.
Singapore also blue zone, right? You don't feel
Singapore's blue zone?
I think it's maybe not in that documentary per se, but I think there has been talk about Singapore being considered. So there was a BBC article, the world's 6th blue zone. Why Singapore values both quantity and quality of life. They say blue zone in inverted commas
Wow.
So I think just based on life expectancy
but different different. That kind of blue zone there is like natural blue zone. Singapore's blue zone is like very artificial. It feels like.
So Singapore was actually named
really?
as a blue zone 2.0.
Oh, that's crazy.
Yeah.
I had no clue.
You don't feel refreshed walking on the streets of Singapore?
No, I don't. I feel older. I come back only I feel like back pain, everything pain again. Yeah.
Oh man. But yeah, you were keeping track of the news. Sounds like you're keeping track of the news and all that.
I also heard that you had 2 very exciting guests come on.
Yeah.
But I haven't had a chance to actually listen to them. How they kept the Yalabat boat afloat, right?
Yeah, they did. So I always appreciate guests standing in for when one of us is gone.
Yeah.
It's just interesting to explore like a different dynamic and all that.
What was the takeaway from those 2?
I think the takeaway was that the types of discussions with different people will always be different. You can't replicate the same type of conversation with someone else, and you just got to appreciate everyone for their own thoughts and how they talk about stuff. Because you can't force a particular approach on someone who maybe is not the that's not their forte.
So that's what you're trying to do, like force like Kate or Rishi to talk in a certain way, is it?
No, I mean just to explore certain things like, debate stuff and all.
I see. Because I saw a lot of comments. I haven't listened to the podcast, but there are a lot of comments.
One comment that said I couldn't rein in Kate as well as you.
I did that,
but they also said maybe it's because when two big personalities come on, as opposed to Terence's more mellow personality.
Yeah, correct. I'm okay with that. Yeah. To me, it strikes me more that you and Kate are similar. You are very similar.
I don't know whether I'll call similar. Okay. I don't know whether you call us similar.
Yeah. Similar types of personalities.
No, I refute that.
I need a more mellow person to rein you two in.
Yeah.
You're like two gladiators, right? You're clashing in the Coliseum. You don't need like someone to...
No, we had a civil discourse, Terence.
Civil
discourse.
Okay.
And then Rishi, long-time guest.
Yeah.
So, okay lah, always easy.
And just off his show, right? Off his solo show, which was great.
Yeah, which we went to. Can I Make You a Suit, Mate?
Yeah.
And yeah, I think he wants to do another run next year or something, or a few years down the road, because he also feels it's timeless, which I think it is.
Correct, yeah. Perfect for SG60. Yeah.
Hell yeah, man.
Yeah.
Cool, man.
Cool. There's a lot of things to talk about.
To catch up on.
Yeah. But before we do all that, what do you always tell the audience?
That if you enjoy this podcast, if you're new to the podcast, it'd be great if you could hit the subscribe button on YouTube, follow us on Spotify, leave a rating on Spotify. I think we're up to 1.3K, 1,300 reviews, ratings on Spotify, 4.8, 4.9, I think, out of 5, which is great.
Yeah.
Follow us on Instagram, TikTok, and Reddit. And what else?
If you want to work with us, email us at contact@ministryoffunny.com or check out ministryoffunny.com.
Yep.
Yeah.
Alrighty, cool.
Yes.
So, the something that happened fresh off on Friday was that PM Wong had his press conference with local media. And there's a whole 37-minute video on YouTube where you see PM Wong having his opening remarks and then taking a range of questions from the different outlets in Singapore. I had no idea that it even happened until today. But you knew on Friday itself?
In
Okinawa?
Yeah. I was reading about it. It was like listening to Lawrence Wong's response about the elections.
Amongst other things. Yeah. But like the context of this, because before we started recording, you were kind of giving the context of this, which is what? Like these sort of press conferences.
I think because he believes in being really communicating his vision and his views to everyone. So every few months, he said that he will do a press conference like that every few months. So he did one like upon the 100 days after he became prime minister. I mean, obviously, then there was the NDR. Then now there's this, and I think maybe he's prepping for the next one to be the budget.
Yeah, because I totally forgot about this, but in May this year, I guess 3 days before he took over, on 13th May, he, when speaking to the media, he pledged that there will be more press conferences as part of the government's efforts to improve public communication. So yeah, it's a very concerted effort. And he also did say that it was helpful during COVID, which is where a lot of us really saw him come to, the forefront, right?
Yep.
And I guess he was like, yo, man, it worked back then. Let me do it more often now.
Yeah.
Because when I saw this press conference, I was like, hey, actually, what is the context? Is he holding this just to respond to the elections? No, it was to answer a whole range of questions.
You mean you don't miss the MMTF press conferences from back then?
No, actually, to be honest, when I watched this, right, I was like, hey, actually, this is quite nice.
It's a good thing, right?
Yeah. Because the questions...
and he allows people to really ask questions, right?
Yeah, and it doesn't feel like the questions were all given beforehand and he had answers. Because when they were asking, there were quite a few questions about elections. Elections. You're like, why are you asking about elections now? You have the whole year, blah, blah. So it did feel like, oh shit, was he really responding off the cuff? Maybe he had some idea of the questions. But yeah, I actually found it a bit like cathartic.
They even asked him about Lee Hsien Yang, right?
Yeah.
And he also had to respond. So it's not like he's hiding from the topic. Right?
Yeah. Talk about SG60, Lee Hsien Yang, US elections, what Trump is going to do, the budget, and more elections in Singapore.
Yeah.
So I actually felt like he's a good orator.
It's a good thing that he's, walking the talk. wanting to communicate more. But what he says, right, might be that's what people are analyzing, right?
Yeah.
And I think we're zeroing in on the part where he talks about elections, right?
Yes, correct.
Because everyone, including when I was in Japan, everyone was listening to or talking about the US elections.
Yeah.
How was the mood here in Singapore?
I would say like it was people were watching. I mean, anecdotally like I think people were aware it was happening. They had their own thoughts. I wasn't doing my own walkabouts, getting thoughts with family and friends.
Yeah.
But everyone was well aware.
Yeah.
And a lot of discussion about it. But it almost felt like it was a global thing as opposed to just like the Singapore, being a bit more concerned. It really felt like the whole world was talking about it.
Yeah. My friends were talking about doing like a watch party.
Oh, is it?
It was in the middle of the day on a Wednesday, right? Wednesday. Yeah. So I was like, who's going to have a watch party? I don't think they ended up having one, but yeah, that was the thing. Like people around the world, like for some reason, really gave a shit about like stuff like counties and historical data and all that.
Yeah.
They really dug into all that. That I never knew that so many of them were interested in that stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I mean, on social media, it was going crazy.
Yeah. But I guess what's interesting is that the US elections, because of the size of the population and the number of people who actually end up voting, there's a lot of data that is like very interesting for people who like to mine data, right?
Yeah, correct.
About counties, about historical election results and things like that. So that's where it's more interesting than, say, Singapore elections, where it feels much more straightforward, right? Yeah, does someone get a majority vote here, a majority percentage here, or what, that kind of thing.
And the person in Tampines and the person in Jurong, generally similar.
Similar. US is very different, right? The coastal cities versus the middle of the country. And all that.
The Rust Belt and all, it's insane. And I think like more than 160 million, 150 million people voted, which is insane.
And that's still not insane. That's still only 60% of their population or something.
Yeah, I think the population now is 350 million, right?
Oh wow, it's less than half.
334 million.
Wow.
So it's less than half.
Wow, yeah.
Yeah, less than half.
In Singapore, we usually like 90-something% voting, right?
Yeah, correct. So I mean, how's it in Okinawa?
I mean, I was traveling, right? So I was on the road a lot, but there was stuff on the news and things like that. But I wasn't really talking to Japanese about it. I did, but because I was in Okinawa, and there's a place in Okinawa called America Town or American Village. I didn't see any MAGA hats or anything being sold there. They were selling like American paraphernalia, but not like Donald Trump hats or MAGA merch. Whereas in Singapore, I found like a lot of people seem to be like very happy that Trump won.
Really? You say that because you saw people wearing MAGA hats,
Not MAGA hats, but I mean, stock market got a big boost.
Oh, yeah.
Crypto
market,
a big boost also.
Yeah.
A lot of Singaporeans dabble in the stock markets, right?
Also, they're happy because of that,
Probably. And also, I mean, just overall, there's the whole strongman persona that Donald Trump brings, right?
Apparently, he got on a call with Zelensky already, with Elon Musk. Hamas wants to end the war.
Is one of your man crushes like Elon Musk, right?
I respect him. I still wouldn't say he was a man crush until like that. But I respect what he does. Even though now he's a bit like just this eccentric billionaire.
Yeah. So I found like a lot of Singaporeans very, very very taken with the election. Yeah.
But were you thinking like from Okinawa, as you were watching the Japanese AV shoot and all?
Yeah.
Just thinking.
I wasn't watching the Japanese AV shoot.
Okay.
You put it in that context, that part gets cut up and put on social media. You gotta put the context roughly. The AV shoot was happening next to me. Yeah.
Witnessing the AV shoot.
I wasn't witnessing it. I didn't even look at it. I was shooed away. I didn't even have a chance.
But was that post-election or like results or pre?
Pre.
Okay. So post-election results, when you're doing, what else you did in Okinawa, were you kind of reflecting on like what the election results mean in Singapore, what Singapore was thinking about, how it's going to impact the future of our own elections?
I guess so. I was thinking a little bit about it. But that's where I thought this Lawrence Wong thing was quite timely, right?
Yeah,
I think there's been a bit of debate on Reddit about like, why, what impact this election result would have on Singapore as well.
Yeah.
But it seems like Lawrence Wong, at least he's coming out to address it since that many people care about it.
And I mean, like, more specifically, there was a question that asked him, what Singaporeans can do to ensure that rising racial and societal tensions in the US do not repeat themselves here. And then I think there were questions about, let's say, if Donald Trump does impose tariffs, what does it mean for Singapore? What does the Singapore-US relationship look like given it's going to be Trump? And generally his answers were along the lines of, like, with regards to Trump, he said, the Singapore government worked with the Trump administration the previous time.
Yeah.
It strengthened the relationships. There was a bunch of stuff that was done, and he's confident they will do it now.
Yeah.
Again. Of course, with regards to the tariffs and all, he made the difference that there's what Donald Trump says versus what he does.
Yeah.
So also kind of like emphasizing that they want to keep the free trade agreement going on and making sure there's less tension and less friction.
Yeah.
And when it came to Singapore itself, he said, we've always been concerned about the danger of a polarized society and that the government has tried hard to put safeguards in place against falsehoods. And then talked about, the recent efforts to improve the law again around deepfakes, POFMA and all that. But I mean, it was also mentioned that, he hopes that Singaporeans themselves will do their part. Because at the end of the day, and I quote, it is Singaporeans who hopefully understands what's at stake.
Yeah.
It is about choosing the right party to govern. That's important, but it's also about determining our future.
Yeah.
So his response was quite measured, quite political. But what do you make of it?
I mean, he was also very quick to congratulate Donald Trump the moment it was confirmed as the winner, right? And he even also, I think he also congratulated JD Vance for becoming a US vice president. So he says, to quote, he said, "I'm confident that under your stewardship, the US will continue to grow and exercise its global leadership role." So you can tell that regardless of the result, right? Regardless of who he personally favored or whatever, we still need to try and maintain good relations with the US, right?
Yeah.
And as a PM, he's just doing his job of keeping it together, right? And I mean, in the context of last week as well, given there was like the stabbing that went on in the church and all, I think initially everyone was very worried that it was related to religion or some terrorist attack, right? Which I think they've come out and said that it's not, right? Nothing to do with that. All these things are important to keep the social fabric together, to make sure that there are no divisions in society because of politics and all, like we're seeing in the US, right? So, okay, I mean, it's a very measured response, I think. And he said nothing disparaging about either side. We've had Donald Trump come to Singapore before. We had Kamala come to Singapore before. So, we've had both sides.
Yeah. The Donald Trump, it was with the Kim Jong-un.
Yeah, right. Kim Jong-un,
It was 2018. I forgot that was pretty recent, man.
It's pretty recent. Yeah. And it was actually quite a big deal when it happened, right?
It was.
Yeah.
But so, building on that, because everything he said, quite measured, nothing really too polarizing. But when you said, you were thinking about how it impacts Singapore, the Singaporean POV, like what are your thoughts?
Okay, I mean, this one maybe goes a bit into what you personally or what I personally think about Trump and everything.
Yeah.
I think the way he talks about things worries me sometimes because it kind of sets a tone for how the rest of society will talk as well, right?
Yeah.
And the stuff he says about, deporting immigrants, raising tariffs on everyone, it kind of...
It's abortion.
Like that, abortion, his stance on abortion and then his refusal to sort of acknowledge the last election results and things like that. It kind of emboldens people who talk in such extremes, right?
Yeah.
And the fact that he won the presidential race again, emboldens people further. And this time he won convincingly, right? That's the scary thing. So for me, I feel like it kind of, it's like when you go to a, family gathering and then that uncle turns up and he's that uncle that, has the potential to create a scene, get drunk and say the most inappropriate things and all. And everyone's sort of like, they're holding their breath as he walks as he walks by. Not only because he smells like alcohol, but because he might say something really silly. So I feel like that's what happens when Trump comes back to the stage, where every country is like, okay, what's going to happen next? And we got to be ready to react.
Yeah.
And it puts everybody on their toes a little bit.
Yeah.
How do you feel about it when everything happens?
I mean, like I was telling Rishi also that anecdotally, like even in my own household with my wife and my mom, we were just kind of guessing like, who will win.
Yeah.
And generally all of us started with like Trump will win. But then I was just trying to be like, okay, maybe there's a chance that Kamala might win, because in 2016 everybody thought Hillary would win, it became Trump. Then now it feels like the reverse could happen.
Yeah.
And also because we bet on like whoever wins will get like a free dinner. Of course, I mean, it's just a small treat.
Yeah.
So I was like, okay, if we all choose Trump, then there's not going to be a winner. So I chose Kamala.
Oh, so you lost.
Yeah, I lost. But I would still say that it was surprising, but also not surprising in the sense that the fact that he had been getting so much momentum, even right before the election, after all the shit that was being thrown at him, it felt like, okay, this momentum is going to continue.
Yeah.
Whereas Kamala started off with a bang, the debate went well, but then after that, it seemed to have lost steam.
Yeah. I think the part where I felt like, doesn't look good is when she started to get a whole bunch of celebrity endorsements coming on.
Yeah.
Jennifer Lopez, Eminem even.
Cardi B
and Beyonce and all. And then also she appeared on SNL.
Yeah,
right,
but turned down Joe Rogan.
And Joe Rogan even explained why. And it seemed like a very silly reason why. I think he said that she only agreed to do a 1-hour interview with Joe Rogan, and it would need him to fly out to her.
Yeah, correct.
Which, I mean, anyone who listens to Joe Rogan, we know that shit doesn't happen. People fly to him for a 3-hour sit-down interview. Right?
Yeah.
And it just made her look very kind of aloof, right? And dismissive of the population of people that she should be gunning for to vote for her.
Yeah.
I think once I saw, I also watched Triumph, the insult dog also, going to the rally in Madison Square Garden, I think, and insulting all the Trump supporters there. I saw Jimmy Kimmel making a lot of jokes, like insulting Trump as well.
And tearing up.
And that was after, right? So I'm talking about before the actual election. Then it just felt too much like 2016, like Hillary Clinton all over again, where everyone was just laughing at Trump and Trump supporters.
Yeah.
Whereas Trump was doing the thing like the whole McDonald's drive-through thing that we talked about. He did the garbage. He dressed as a garbage truck. He dressed in garbage collector garb, right, on Halloween. And that was in response to something Joe Biden said that also dismissed Trump supporters as garbage, right?
Yeah.
So I felt like they were on two different kinds of like campaigns, right? One was going the traditional way that you would imagine, like, well, that's what a politician should do to get votes. Whereas the other one was really banking on like social media and all these unconventional methods.
Yeah.
And it seemed like she was trotting the Hillary Clinton path and he was just doing his thing.
Yeah, so I think that is the most shocking thing of all.
What?
Like how the Democrats almost didn't try anything different.
Yeah, they doubled down what what failed them before.
Yeah. And then like, I mean, just I think it, like, why I think it's important for Singapore is because I mean, I think, like, there's one thing about going with like what is the norm, how politics should be done, and assuming that you will always, it'll always be okay if you keep doing what you have been doing. And that's where I think Singapore, especially, just reading over the today, there was another person who was shot. Oh, the guy with the flamethrower, he was shot, right?
Yeah.
I don't know whether they use like the rubber bullets or an actual like round. Like the protest bullets, there are those rubber bullets that can still injure, but they might not kill. But I think it was a real bullet.
Yeah.
And then if you look, normally when you read an article, they have backlinks to other articles about similar topics. And there have been quite a few, another person that was shot, I think, a few months ago in Singapore. And then you see more and more cases of this where people are acting like this. They're acting out. And it just, I would imagine that a large part are people who are feeling like just stuck or, being radicalized or or feeling disenfranchised and acting out. And that, I think, is very worrying because, yes, Singapore, we're in a good place. There's racial harmony and all, but there's still this undercurrent, right, that is brewing. And, talking about the recent things, I guess the biggest example would be the Income Alliance.
Yeah.
We heard from the establishment one particular narrative, and it was almost kind of making everybody feel like, okay, what you're thinking, this feeling that, there's something wrong with this, but okay, maybe it isn't wrong because you know better. But turns out that gut feel was real.
Yeah.
I think that is a very dangerous sentiment. That if it keeps happening, right, it won't be good.
So you're linking that all these random, or not say random, all these like separate, like the stabbing at the church or the guy with a flamethrower in Pasir Ris.
And I'm not saying Income Alliance.
Income Alliance.
No, I'm saying the Income Alliance is an example where you had people kind of voicing out a certain perspective, but being told from the top that there's nothing wrong with it is the best interest. But in actual fact, people, the masses were kind of like had a point, And when you're not listened to, that can be something, that sentiment that can grow.
But it was good. But that's the whole point, right? Then people like Tan Swee Chie and
spoke out. Very
peacefully.
Yeah.
Wrote letters, wrote to Shanmugam multiple times, I think. Even met with Shanmugam and all.
Yeah.
And then, it got debated in Parliament, and then more people scrutinized it. And then the government
worked out.
So it worked out.
Yeah.
So how is it linked to the guy with the flamethrower in Pasir Ris?
It's the same thing why you would imagine Trump ended up getting elected, right? There's a huge amount of people in the US who are not happy with the current everything.
Yeah.
And Trump to them, I would imagine, represents change.
Yeah.
Whereas when you see Kamala, whatever we said, right, she was doubling down, almost like a repeat of what Hillary did.
Yeah.
Like 8 years ago.
Yeah.
So then it feels like, okay, there's the traditional way of doing things, and there's change.
Yeah.
And I think when people are stuck and cornered and all, change becomes a bit more of the better option.
Okay, so they just don't want more of the same.
Yeah.
Right.
And I will say this also because over the past weekend, like just thinking a lot about elections and all, and the same question, like, who would I vote for if I was in the US?
Yeah.
And I realized, right, because now with our kid, and then over the past weekend, my mom also fell sick.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of stuff happening, right?
Yeah.
And like at 2 a.m., 3 a.m, when like just dealing with stuff, I find myself, when I ask myself the question, I'm more Trump.
Is it?
Yeah.
You hate women, is it?
Fuck you.
You could have scolded by your wife or your mother, then you're like, fuck.
No, because like in the middle of the night when like soothing my kid and all, I'll just like, while waiting and all, I'll just read the news and all that. And a lot of times it's elections, right?
Yeah.
And then I play this thing in my mind. Then I find like when I'm just feeling like stretched to the max, right? I find myself veering more towards like Trump or away from Kamala.
But why? Like just frustration with status quo.
Yeah.
That's all.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I think
so it'll be a protest vote.
Yeah, it'll be a protest vote, which is totally ridiculous because I'm in Singapore, right? I have no bearing on the election. But just when I think about that, I find like it's really based on emotion and what I'm feeling in that moment. And if I drill down even more, it is like, how am I feeling at this point? Do I need a change and shit like that? Yeah. Then I feel I veer towards what is the more likely change compared to what going on with the same. Yeah. So then when I'm thinking, oh shit, like that's why that approach where they are mocking Trump supporters and all is dangerous.
I think galvanizes them to want to vote for him even more.
Yeah.
I get that sentiment. But I'm just surprised that you surrounded by women and all that. You would still vote for someone who basically
No. I wouldn't say. I would say like I mean, okay, Kamala is not an obvious choice, right? Yeah. But Trump is more often than not an obvious not a choice.
Yeah.
But I'm saying in the grey zone, I find myself veering. Yeah. And it is largely emotional.
But nothing to do with the fact that you only support winning teams. Like how you're a Man U fan and things like that.
No. I mean, is Man U winning now? Is Man U winning now?
Are you a Man U fan now? You keep saying you're a fair weather Man U fan.
No, I would still say that if I had one club to support, it would be Man U. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So you think just because Trump won, I'm a Trump supporter, is it?
No, I mean, there's a lot of revisionism going on now. Like, people are kind of turning around and saying, Kamala, she was not it. We should have stuck with Biden, or we should have seen from the very start that Trump was going to win. It wasn't that obvious.
That's all damn stupid. People blaming George Clooney also.
George Clooney,
So it was just and don't anyhow pin that it's because I'm surrounded by women right now.
This is a man screaming for help right now.
I'm stretched, dude. I'm stretched.
I mean, she's definitely not most charming, and that's why I think it really hurt her not going on Joe Rogan's podcast.
But some people say that's damn ridiculous.
What?
Her not going on Joe Rogan's podcast. Why is that such a big deal?
Because according to anecdotes, there are people who don't even know that Biden's out of the race.
Yeah.
These are people who maybe only get the news from like podcasts and they don't read mainstream media or anything. So you want to reach as big a base as possible. And I think they know that the white males is one of the more pro-Trump demographics, right?
Young white males.
Yeah, you want to be able to get some of that on your side. You have to go to where they hang out and what they listen to, right? So I don't think it's a ridiculous thing. I think it tells you something about the power of podcasting, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not tooting our own horn or so, but the truth is that the podcasts do give people a real insight into how people think and how they behave when sitting down in a room and just talking or having a drink and all that. It's all about the authenticity these days, right? These days on TikTok and social media. And there's nothing more authentic than a podcast.
Yeah. So, I mean, in some way, I guess bringing it back to Singapore, there is, in some way, Lawrence Wong having these regular press conferences is a bit of a peek into how he handles questions, right? Which is a good thing, lah. Right now, it's not a podcast because it's to the media. Of course, if we could get him on our podcast, that would be fucking great.
Yeah, I think if any lesson that any politician needs to learn is like you want to sit down in a safe space to talk with people who can engage with you and really give you a place to just speak your mind out, right?
Yeah, and for people to get to know you as a person. Yeah, because even for Kamala Harris, the podcast she went on, I think they were very selected.
Yeah, and they I think it's revealed that they even built a studio, a $100,000 custom studio just for her recording of that Call Her Daddy podcast.
Oh, is it?
Yeah. That's what I saw in some headlines.
And I mean, Call Her Daddy is a huge podcast, but it did feel like it's
manufactured.
Yeah. Whereas with Trump, he went on Joe Rogan, he went on Theo Vaughn, he went on a few other podcasts. And if you listen to even excerpts of the Joe Rogan one, it really felt like you're getting, like he's just talking like a human. And that's why I think if Lawrence Wong ever wants to come on, and we don't even need to talk politics. We can talk about a whole range of stuff. Just for people to understand you. Because with this press conference, I think more so than the National Day rally, you get a bit more insight into his general demeanor, which is good.
And what he's busy with, what he's thinking about.
And how he responds to questions that you can see him getting annoyed by.
Yeah,
right.
Definitely.
Yeah, so interesting.
So, it's I think it's still very early stages, right? I think you and Rishi also spoke about how there'll be more content for comedy with Trump as the president, right? So I think for us also on the podcast, there'll be a lot more to talk about based on what he does. Because, remember a couple of years back, everyone was just writing him off as like he'll never enter politics again. He's going to be a convicted felon and everything. And look at him now, comeback story of the year.
Comeback story of the year, man.
Yeah.
But going to be a interesting next few months. Yeah.
But even if you catch up with your news only on social media and not other places, maybe in the future it might actually be harder for young people to use social media to find out about what's going on around the world, right? Based on something that they're enacting in Australia. And what are they enacting in Australia?
So in Australia, they announced that the government is looking to ban social media for children under 16 years old. So basically, I mean, based on the risk to mental and physical health, the ban could start as early as next year. But I don't think it's confirmed yet. Though the Reuters article does say the Australian government will legislate for a ban on social media for children under 16.
Yeah.
In what it calls a world-leading package of measures that could become law late next year. So I don't know what the current age to sign up for social media is in Australia, but 16 is quite it's quite old.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's quite old. So, I mean, amongst the other countries, right? So France last year proposed a ban on social media for those under 15. I think earlier this year, Spain moved to increase the ban from 14 to 16.
Yeah.
And I think even Malaysia is considering enforcing some sort of licensing scheme for social media. Which, I mean, I didn't even know this was happening in those countries.
Yeah.
And then now, there's a CNA article, actually an Australian article that talks about the rationale for why the ban was considered. But, you know, like, when you saw talk of this and all, like, what came to mind?
I mean, at first I was like, oh yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And I mean, generally I'm quite supportive of like, especially for kids, minimizing mobile phone use, right? Because I've read the books, like, I've read the material that Jonathan Haidt, the one of the writers of the books who's mentioned in the article that you brought up, right? He's very, I think the book's called The Anxious Generation, and he's very adamant that, you know, we should be letting our children play outside and letting them experience the world outside rather than having them on social media, because it leads to a lot, exacerbates issues of like bullying and things like that, especially amongst girls, right? So yeah, generally I do think social media is quite a dangerous thing. But at the same time, I'm also reading that some people are saying that this ban won't work. Like, there are actually a lot of negative effects of this ban that haven't been thought about. But for you, what do you think when you first heard of this?
Same thing. Like, initially I was like, okay, this is a good thing, because social media can really be very, very toxic. And having a ban in some way, because there's been so much talk about the platforms needing to do more, right? But if you think about it from the perspective of these listed companies, these tech companies, their best interests will never line up with like protecting the interests of youth, unless it can be tied back to the bottom line. But a ban like this feels like, okay, if the ban is in place, the tech companies themselves will need to find ways to allow them to operate, which in some way is forcing them to do what you want them to do, but with more leverage. Then I was thinking, okay, maybe that might solve the problem about begging tech companies to change, because if they don't have to change, they won't change. But then when I was reading about how it's almost a way to silence voices or make comms or control the channels of comms, then I was thinking, oh, okay, maybe that might have some implications, because teenagers like 14, 15, you know, as much as social media can cause bullying, sometimes they also provide an outlet for people to vent and find and seek support or find your tribe, you know. So then I was like, oh, okay, this is not that straightforward.
I think the examples that I saw, like, people are saying that sometimes, you know, teens, let's say they're facing rejection at home, right, for some various reasons of their sexuality or anything like that. Sometimes going online and finding, you know, common interest group or something, actually is much more helpful to them than it is negative, right? So banning the use of social media for them actually cuts these support networks for them. And because social media right now is still very loosely defined, it could include things like Reddit, right? You know, or even like messenger apps that we use. Like, I mean, the old ones are MSN Messenger and IRC and all that, but it could include these other messenger apps as well. So maybe it really cuts off these teens from finding groups for help, you know, mental health support, everything around the world, right? So I'm not sure, man. It's now that I've read about these opinions, I'm like, okay, maybe it's a bit like in Singapore, how we had you know, when we had problems with PMDs, personal mobility devices.
You just cut it off.
Within a very short period, we just decided to just ban them all. And without thinking about how it affect the larger population, not only the population, but even the incomes of people who use these PMDs for a living, right? Like the delivery riders and all. So maybe this one needs to be analyzed quite carefully.
But then, on the flip side, right, like when that PMD ban happened, yes, I think we also spoke about it. We thought it was like, okay, you can't just do this just so fast and threaten people's livelihoods. But like, it's how many years since then?
At least like 3 years. I don't know, 3-4 years.
I mean, I don't know like how people adapted and all, but it almost felt like there was an evolution in terms of how people are doing what they used to do.
Yeah.
So in some way, let's say if this ban does take in place, then I would assume that the government, since if they want to enforce this, also needs to make sure that whatever support systems, whatever ecosystems were there, need to have an outlet that is non-social media. Of course, you can't cover all bases, but I think they need to take the lead. But also the organizations that maybe do provide support online or, through those anonymous messenger apps and all, then in some way they will have to adapt. So there will be this period of like, oh shit, like there's this gap. But maybe it's one of those things that could force a change for the better.
I mean, the example actually is right here in Singapore as well. When POFMA first began, right? There was a lot of consternation amongst I think Facebook specifically, about how to implement, a POFMA directive, especially on a Facebook post, right? And I think over time they've come to accept that this is just part of operating in Singapore. It needs to be done. And so now it's quite seamless, right? So there will be some teething issues at the start, but I think what we also want is for the social media giants, these big tech companies, to also take their fair share of responsibility for regulating social media for young people.
I would imagine that for any government, that would probably be a big factor. Like, okay, we can go and beg these tech companies to change. But if they want to operate in our country, we change the law. Then they need to find some way to adapt to it. So in some way you are twisting them into the thing, which I mean, not to say that is a bad thing entirely, because we talked about the tray also, the fining for not returning trays. The initial part you're like, this is ridiculous, this is so draconian and all, but it did have quantifiable impact. Right. So that's why I'm not entirely closed off to this. I'm sure if you speak to younger people, they might feel differently. I forgot that Singapore, the age is already 13, right? So 13 to 16, yes, it's very formative years, but it's not like there's no age requirement to 16. So I don't know, I'm not closed off to this.
And don't forget, I mean, obviously Singapore is a very different place from Australia also, right? But like, now we all know that scams on social media is such a big issue, and I think a lot of times the Singapore government has called out Meta, Facebook, and for not doing enough to combat these scams going on their platform. So like you said, we can ask them nicely, but will there be any result? Because there has been communications leaked before that Zuckerberg doesn't really give a shit unless it's in the interest of the bottom line, right? So maybe it does require some really drastic action from the get-go for someone like Meta or the other social media giants to wake up and realize, actually we got to start looking at this more holistically around the world and not just in Australia, right? And Singapore, the POFMA directives was one issue. But Singapore also should look at something like this.
Especially now as a parent, Terrence.
Of course.
My mature Harish 2.0. I think about the future generation and, the implications of how we live on how they will live, Terrence.
So has that affected your propensity to swear on this podcast also?
No.
You're still okay with your friends' kids being exposed to vulgarities?
I mean, okay, we have that explicit thing on our podcast cover, right? If you want to let your kids listen to us, I'm very grateful. But I mean, it's your choice,
You hypocrite. You are saying that the platforms should be doing more to regulate things for, things that young people can have access to, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And then here you're saying that, it's your choice. I've got the explicit rating there already. It's your choice to listen, and I can't do anything.
But this one, I am wanting to talk to the older folk.
Oh, okay.
But if their kids are there, it can't be my responsibility to, have a warning. Okay, I'm going to swear. Please, if you're in the vicinity of your kids, please cover their ears.
Yeah.
This podcast doesn't target younger folk.
Maybe I should add a disclaimer at our Yalba intro.
Yeah.
With a touch of good old humor and vulgarities.
Yeah, once in a while. Yeah.
If you can't deal with it.
Yeah. Then it'll be all these asterisks and disclaimers.
Yeah. But then at the same time, here you say you want to vote for Trump and everything.
Okay.
And then you're like...
I didn't say I want to vote for
you
Trump.
You said you would have voted.
I was reflecting on my own mental state, Terrence. At 3 a.m. when my baby is crying and we don't know how to put her to sleep. And it's just like the dynamics at home and stuff like that. Yeah.
So, he's all about freedom of speech and everything, right?
Yeah.
So doesn't this curtail that so-called freedom of speech?
But why does it curtail my supposed voting for Trump? Is it?
No, it doesn't curtail your voting for Trump. I'm saying that you said that you would, if you were in the US, you might have voted
Terrence,
for Trump.
You never pay attention to what I said. What I said just now was I find myself veering away and towards Kamala or Trump based on my emotional state.
Yeah.
Right? I at no point said it depends on their policies.
Okay.
So that was the whole point I was getting at, Terrence.
Okay.
That voting is more emotional than ever.
Okay, so you just hate women.
I'm sorry, I don't watch AV shoots when my holiday with my family, to enjoy the
cultural
human body.
It's a cultural experience.
Yeah.
It's a uniquely Japanese experience.
No, yeah.
So here you are.
Again, you're going back to it.
But that's what Trump is about, right? That's what is Truth Social and.
But again, when I said any sentiments I have towards thinking, I might vote for Trump is not dependent at all on his policies. Yeah,
we moved past that.
Now you're going back. You're going back.
No, as we move past whether or not you vote for Trump. But I'm just saying that Elon Musk himself has come out and criticized Australian government before for being very heavy-handed in how they deal with young people on social media, right?
Yeah.
Do you think there's any validity to that criticism?
But if you look at Elon Musk, now if you go on X, right, it's really a free-for-all.
Yeah.
Which on one hand, you can argue that, it's exposing a lot of truths that maybe will cover up. But Twitter X can be messed up if you go down this path. And I don't fully believe that, free speech is total free speech is the best thing. And I think there needs to be some parameters or guardrails, especially for younger folk.
Then why 16 and not
that
why
one,
not other ages?
That one I don't know.
But one thing for sure is that there's a big difference between 13 and 16 also. I feel like
that age.
Yeah, when we were that age, every year felt like an eternity in your growth and your
so
mental.
Different,
and your mental state, right, changed so much year to year.
Yeah.
You look at the kids when they're Sec 1 and then how they look when they're at Sec 4 and everything. So much difference, right?
Yeah.
So, not saying that it's good or bad, but it just tells you that people change a lot in those couple of years. And when there's social media during that period of big change between 13 and 16, is that a good or bad thing? I veer towards saying that it's not a very good thing.
Yeah.
But at the same time, there might be groups that need to use TikTok to find their tribe and all.
Yeah. And I think 16 because there are a lot of other things that are already pegged to 16.
Puberty,
No, laws.
Oh, laws.
Okay,
some people, they do have puberty later than 16.
Some later, some early.
Some earlier, yeah.
Okay, don't impose your own experience on us.
Well, yeah. No, mine was a bit earlier.
Yeah, I think 16 is really not...
Quite late already.
Quite late already. But I was saying the laws, Terrence. Definition of a minor, gag orders, and whether people can vote or not. I think 16, 18, 21, 13, they're all established benchmarks. So imagine if you want to pass legislation, it would be just peg it to one of these ages.
So if there was a ban in Singapore, what age should we put it at?
I would think right now it's really 13.
Yeah.
Right? Of course, there are ways younger people can circumvent it. But I would imagine the next step, I don't think 14 or 15 would make that much sense. Then I would say 16.
You say 16?
Yeah, you?
I would say about 15.
15.
Yeah. I feel like somehow that transition around 16 when you are getting out of like secondary school and all that, you might even potentially be looking for a job already, at that point. You are, if you don't go to Institute of Higher Learning, you might be even going to army and everything. You're going to be carrying guns and all. You kind of need to, at some point also be a little bit more engaged with the world. And I think, especially for young people these days, actually, fortunately or unfortunately, they need to be engaged with the world to find jobs, to get on in life, even to find like spouses and partners and things like that. So maybe leaving it to 16 might be... I know what I mentioned earlier is every year has a big difference, but I think there will be pros and cons to each argument of which year you should do it. So to me, it's like, okay, maybe the final year of your high school or secondary school, that might be
actually
okay.
Yeah, I would still say, I think if you are saying pegging, it will be after that 16
O-levels. Like a true Singaporean parent.
Be it O-levels. Because,
after
right?
PSLE.
Okay.
Okay, Bo.
Yeah, you better study, You better study. The day you finish, I sign you up for TikTok.
I sign you on TikTok.
No, because the thing is,
meet your vice
if we
principal.
tie it to birth date, right?
Yeah.
That will cause a whole host of other issues.
Okay.
Because the January babies, like myself, I will be able to get social media before December babies like you.
Correct.
Right.
You'll be depressed for like a whole year.
Or I might find love first.
Thrive, Then I'll feel left out.
Yeah, you'll feel left out. So, but also pegging it to like O-levels and all. I mean, now there are so many different educational paths, right? But it almost feels like, the change from like army to uni or like from JC to uni, suddenly you wear uniform, suddenly you don't wear uniform. Yeah. And it's like, wow, I've progressed.
Yeah.
Now you just add like, okay, social media, social media comes with that. So I think that sort of milestone is actually quite nice.
Like once you graduate.
Once you graduate, you throw your hat into the air and then you get your social media account.
Maybe that's a Singapore thing. You must pass your O-level, then you can get social media.
certain grades. To get into poly or uni or whatever, then after that, there's the social side of things.
Yeah. Maybe.
Which, who knows, might be the next educational incentive plan that might work.
But that's the thing, in Singapore, we're so reliant on home-based learning, right?
Yeah.
Now, especially after COVID and everything.
Yeah.
That we kind of need our kids to start using these devices, even like way younger ages.
And I mean, even in school, they already mandate it. Which is where it gets tricky. Like the moment you start them on devices, then the other argument is like, should it be devoid of devices?
Correct,
Analog all the way until you graduate.
Yeah. I mean, the crazy thing is that, you see the very young 2-year-old, 3-year-olds, even my own son, like, they understand the motions of like zooming in and zooming out or swiping across the screen.
Yeah.
Remember when you first ever used the iPhone? It felt like such a foreign thing.
Yeah,
like whoa,
what is,
I can zoom
do
in,
a button.
There's Google Maps. Oh my God, look at this. I can zoom here.
Yeah.
But for them, it's like they just grow up alongside touch screens already. So it's, I feel like there's also a side of us as an older generation. We need to, they understand that that's the future that they live in. And then, there'll be pros and cons to every decision made. But we got to weigh it carefully.
Yeah. But at the same time, should consider. Like, I wouldn't say like this is a definite no-go.
Because, I mean, look at what the billionaires are doing. Zuckerberg is like designing clothes and shit now, He doesn't give a shit already.
He's a fuckboy,
I mean, Elon Musk is basically in the White House now, doing whatever he does.
Yeah.
Jeff Bezos also just being a billionaire villain and all that. These people don't care about the well-being of your children.
Yeah, they just want to, from their perspective, they're like, I'm doing all I can to advance humanity, But at what sacrifice,
Yeah, exactly.
So, man.
That's the world we live in.
That is the world we live in.
And we haven't had this segment. I'm sure you haven't had this segment in a while. What's your one Shiok thing?
Do you have it?
Yeah, of course.
Okay, yeah, I got.
I mean, have to bring it back to like the last week's podcast.
Yeah.
Like the one you did with Kitania, right?
Yeah.
I think what was it? Let me pull it up. Oh wait, do you have yours?
Oh yeah, I can.
Yeah, sure.
So it was a poll that was started by longtime Redditor, Majestic Economist 6 days ago. That was titled, the subtitle was in the spirit of Halloween, was Harish's smile from episode 580 scary. So the post is Harish's smile scary? And then there was a screenshot of me talking from the previous episode. And I mean, people voted. And yeah, the choices were yes, it sends a chill down my spine, and no, it looks perfectly fine. And I was heartened because I thought the moment his vote was there, it would go swing all the way to yes, it sends a chill down my spine. Because I will admit that sometimes when I smile and all, I do have sometimes creepy vibes. I won't deny that.
Yeah.
Especially with my giant eyes.
Giant eyes, the furrowing brows.
Yeah, the furrowing brows and all. But yeah, I was very heartened that more people voted no, it looks perfectly fine.
Yeah.
Did you vote?
No, I haven't gone in there.
Okay, the vote ended already.
Okay.
Yeah, sorry.
You know which side I'm voting.
Yeah. But yeah, so that was my one shock. I mean, I was surprised by the poll.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was my one shock comment.
Nice.
What is yours?
Mine, is on your podcast with Ketania. I think Mark Wayne Jacobs says, not the most enjoyable podcast because I didn't feel like y'all stayed on topic much. I usually love the tangents y'all take, but this episode seems a bit excessive and pretty repetitive, which made it tiring. I think Terrence reigns Kate's eccentricness in a bit better. He reigns Kate's eccentricness in a bit better sometimes and keeps the podcast on topic. Maybe tough to have two big personalities on it at once because it becomes a bit messy without the mellowness of Terrence. Anyways, great job, guys. Still my favorite podcast. So yeah, great feedback to hear about the mellowness that is required to keep
the mellowness.
These two similar big type A personalities in check.
The mellowness.
Two sides of the same coin, Ketania and Harish.
Yeah, I mean, I would have appreciated if you were there. I wouldn't deny.
Oh yeah. I enjoyed when Ketania was on and everything.
Yeah, maybe the topic also. The topic also was different, Terrence.
Yeah, true. I'll give that to you,
But I mean, we will always continue to have guests.
Yeah.
Because I mean, at certain points, either of us might not be available.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Cool.
What about your one Shiok thing, man?
My one Shiok thing actually is this video that I saw by Suresh S. I'm not sure what the S stands for, but it was from about 5 months ago. It was 120,000 views already. What remains of the old Sentosa monorail? So this, I think this person's a train enthusiast, and he actually does a very deep dive into where the old vestiges of the old Sentosa monorail are now. So do you remember the Sentosa monorail? Yeah. So he actually goes around the island, walks around and finds the pillars and everything.
Wait, so the monorail was completely decommissioned?
Decommissioned, yeah.
So now what's there is not called a monorail?
It's not. Now it's, there is a monorail that goes from Vivo to Sentosa.
But that's not called monorail.
I think it's called monorail, but it's not that old Sentosa monorail. Yeah.
Yeah, so there is a Sentosa Express monorail.
Monorail, yeah. But this one's the one that was
the OG.
Yeah, the OG that had went over the, it was an elevated height and it went around the whole island and you could take it from one end to another. And just sitting on it in itself was
damn sugar, yeah.
So yeah, this channel is quite interesting. He goes to the deep dives into what remains of the entire Sentosa monorail track. And you can even go on your own hike today to go and see all these different spots.
And it used to be open air, the windows. You can stick your hand out.
No aircon, nothing.
Yeah, no aircon, yes. Because you look at the pictures, it's it's pretty dope, man.
Yeah. And it was in the trees and everything. I remember it was damn fun.
Oh, shit.
But yeah, this video is pretty awesome, man. So check it out.
Cool. My one Shiok thing was something I chanced upon Reddit that was posted over the weekend in the Reddit Singapore thread. It was posted by Klingon Pigeon, and the title of the post is, I made a Singlish dictionary with over 2,250 terms, full etymology and other Singlish details. And it's called the Chimbridge Dictionary of Singlish and Singaporean Terminology. So this individual who says that, the past few months, in their free time, they've been compiling the most comprehensive Singlish dictionary project they believe that has ever been attempted. So they give credit to the previous works like something done at SMU, the Coxford Dictionary, and basically put together this pretty interesting site where you can key in any word And I mean, they use English terms. So like when they are prompting you to key in, it's like what thing, then you can click on the A to Z categories, languages of origin, or anyhow whack lah. So if I anyhow whack, the word that comes up is relax. So then there's definitions, examples of how to use it. And yeah, it's there's over 2,290 words defined lah.
Wow.
Yeah, so it's quite cool lah, and it's quite popular on Reddit also. I think 1,400 upvotes. And people are contributing to the guy's Ko-fi page, the guy or girl's Ko-fi page, which is where you can just donate to show your support.
Yeah.
So check it out lah. It's pretty solid lah.
Oh, that's pretty awesome.
Yeah, pretty awesome. Chimbridge English Dictionary.
Yeah.
This is something worthwhile, man.
Yeah.
And then you can suggest new words and all that. But yeah, pretty dope, man.
Oh, powerful.
Cool.
Nice.
Yeah, man.
Cool. So
awesome.
We're back.
We're back.
Fun stuff happening in the next 1-2 months, right?
Yeah. I guess we can say we have an announcement coming soon.
We have an announcement coming soon, but not yet, right? Not
yet, but we got to do the whole tease.
Oh yeah. Big announcement coming.
Big announcement coming soon.
Yeah, big announcement. Exciting announcement coming for 2025.
Yeah, and I mean December itself.
December 2025.
Something interesting happening in December.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that's the end of the podcast. Remember, if you enjoyed it, if you're new to the podcast, please join the Yalabat community. Follow us on Spotify, YouTube, Instagram, TikTok, and Reddit. And
yeah, if you want to work with us, check out ministryoffunny.com.